In 2008, almost exactly 10 years ago today, I was part of a conversation that rocked my world. I was in my office at Seton National, and our new chief financial officer stopped in and told me words that no one wants to hear. Your role has been eliminated. My last day was July 11th of 2008, just two weeks short of my 25th work anniversary. So after hearing those words, I'm sure any of us could choose to be angry or frustrated or overcome with anxiety, especially considering that I'm the primary wage earner in our family. We had 2 kids in college and our son in high school. But the timing of this bad news was very interesting, in that several weeks before this message, I had heard some very good news. I had learned that I was accepted as an applicant in the permanent diaconate process, and that the first session of the new aspirants and our wives would be held on August 8th, 2008. So one door was closing, another door was opening. I had no idea what would be ahead, but I did know one thing. I had a choice to make, and I chose to trust in God. And I started living by a new mantra: God will provide, and God has provided. Having faith and trust in Jesus is at the core of our gospel message this morning. We heard about Jairus, the synagogue official, whose daughter was dying, and he comes to Jesus. Please come lay your hands on her so that she may be well and live. And as Jairus was journeying to his home with Jesus at his side, they received the bad news that his daughter had died. Yet Jesus says to him, "Do not be afraid, just have faith." And when they entered the room where the little girl laid, Jesus said, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And the 12-year-old girl arose and walked around, and we heard that all were astounded. Then we heard the story within the story about the woman afflicted with hemorrhages for 12 years. It's important to understand that according to Mosaic law, because of her affliction, she would have been made unclean, unholy, and untouchable for all of those 12 years. Yet she chose to place her trust in Jesus. She sees Jesus coming in the crowd and says to herself as she approaches, "If I but touch his clothes, I will be healed." And she did touch the clothes of Jesus and felt immediately that her condition was healed. And we hear that Jesus also felt that the power went out from him, and he turns around and says, "Who touched me?" And after he talks with the woman, he says, "Daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be cured of your affliction." There's an interesting reference to the number 12 for both the 12-year-old girl and the woman afflicted for 12 years. And that's a signal within this reading that the message is intended for the 12 tribes of Israel. And today that message is intended to come to each one of us. The message of have faith and trust in the Lord. In our first reading from the book of Wisdom, we heard some very powerful and interesting words. That God did not make death, nor does he rejoice in the destruction of the living. God formed us to be imperishable. So when God created each of us and breathed life into us, he created us to live forever. The question is, do we believe that? Do we believe that we're created to live forever? And again, we're called to have faith and to trust in the Lord. So I'd like to go back again to 2008. So several weeks after my last day at work, I was at Bear Paw Scout Camp near Mountain, Wisconsin, sitting around a campfire on a beautiful night. And the adults there included Dave Sevchek, our scout leader, who's a member of this parish. And Tom Sladek was one of the adults. And the younger scouts included our son Aaron. And then the wise older scouts included Peter Denny and Kyle Sladek, also both members of this parish. And as I look back, 7 years later after that campfire, it was interesting that I was the presider at Peter Denny's wedding that happened here, and that his bride, Samantha, had come through our RCIA process and was welcomed into the Catholic Church here. And then little did I know that 10 years later, yesterday, that I would be in the cathedral watching Kyle Sladek become Father Kyle Sladek. It was a beautiful ordination yesterday. And our parish is blessed that we have helped Kyle on his journey. He received his sacraments of initiation here. And during the ordination, Bishop Rickon made it a point to thank the various peoples and parishes that were part of the formation of the 3 men who were ordained yesterday morning. And he specifically called out St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Parish. He said, our diocese is deeply grateful that these men were raised in communities full of faith and that support them in their mission and in their vocations. So on behalf of Bishop Rickon, thank you all for being part of this community that helps foster vocations of young men and women. I did some digging on the website of the seminary that Kyle went to, Mundelein, down on the north side of Chicago, and he had written, "What do I aspire in my priesthood?" And he just had a few things to say. So these are Kyle's words. "I look forward to settling down and starting, joining a family. I will help my family pray and encounter God in the sacraments. We will help each other become saints and get to heaven." So for our 3 new priests, Father Kyle, Father Greg, and Father Jose, these are young men who have chosen to trust in the Lord and have faith. So that's what Jesus is calling each of us to this morning, to have faith and to trust in him. And when we place our trust in Jesus, anything is possible. So I mentioned the words that I lived by those early days when I was presented with a challenge: God will provide. There's another favorite mantra that I like to use as well, and it's words attributed to Saint Faustina, who was the first saint canonized in the 21st century. She was canonized by now Saint Pope John Paul II on April 30th of 2000. And during that canonization, Pope John Paul II urged us all to take on her mantra, which is simply 5 words. Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust in you.